Good morning, everyone. Yeah, a few birds singing in the background because I woke up a little bit later because it is my day off. And I've actually been up for a while, but I had to do a little bit of planning, what errands I need to take care of today and get that out of the way after I connected with Source this morning. I want to talk a little bit about business in regards to things that I've been witness to and have learned, being part of the workforce, being part of joint ventures and businesses, witnessing startups that have failed. And there seems to be a common denominator in all these situations as to why these businesses are not stable. And that common denominator is not being on the up and up in regards to what they stand for. From the small to the large, a company has to have a mission statement, has to have a goal, has to have a purpose statement. Because without that, for a lot of you, you weren't able to obtain the grant or the loan from whatever organizations, because that would be part of the business plan. And for those of you, I'll shout out to you that are going through the process of starting a business. It's a very labor-intensive process. Mentally, physically, financially, you name it. And you're making sacrifices right now because you're done working for someone, you're ready to lead. And a lot of you are doing it by yourself emotionally and surrounded by people who just don't get it. They may hang around, and then the ones who do make it to the end, then you have to question as to, are they just there so they can share in the bounty? There's a lot of additional stress with trying to level up. And you notice in my video lineup, there are a lot of videos about leveling up, signs of leveling up, the cost of leveling up, the adjustments that you have to make, and these are required. But I noticed that even from the one-person startup to the large corporation, the main struggle is trying to keep what they have financially, trying to keep good employees. Those are two main problems that these businesses have, no matter what the size. And every single day that they open their doors or turn the lights on or fire up the computers or start the machinery, those are the two main goals that they have for that day, is to make sure that the labor is producing on a steady and continuous level. And the second thing is making sure that money comes in on a regular basis from whatever source or that it comes in from. And those are very tricky things because those two things involve human behavior. And when you go out and you hire people, a lot of them look good on paper, but they could have piss poor work ethics. Or they could be hard workers, but they have bad attitudes where they are creating a negative environment and other people don't want to work around them. Or they could just be a perfect person all the way around, good worker, on time and everything else. And those are few and far between. You very rarely get someone like that. And the mistake that a lot of businesses make is sometimes they either overlook or mistreat these people. And when I say mistreat, that mistreatment usually comes in the form of overworking that person to compensate the fact that you got 9 or 10 others that are really not working up to par. They're really not following the company rules. You know they're not. They're warm bodies in a seat, and that's it. They give less than the bare minimum just to keep a paycheck going. So what happens is what they're lacking in production, you go ahead and make the mistake of heaping that on to the person who actually has a strong work ethic. And that creates stress and strain on that person. And that person's attitude begins to change, and they become withdrawn or become disgruntled. And then you wonder why that person's not the same person that they were 5 years before, 10 years before, because they've seen all the bullshit you put them through. And a lot of them are just waiting until a certain time so they can reach certain milestones in their own personal life so they can get the fuck out of there. I'm saying this is because when I was on my early morning commute the other day, and of course this video is going to air several months after the fact, so the people that were involved in this particular incident, they probably even forgot they even had this conversation with each other. But I was on the commuter bus, and the commuter bus that I ride has limited stops. It just doesn't go from point to point. What it does, it goes from it goes through a couple of main terminals to pick up workers before we head to the final destination. So I'm at one location, and I get on there. And then when we get to the second terminal, apparently there was a driver switch out. And so we took a few extra minutes, which is fine because the bus was already on schedule. And as the two drivers proceeded to, interact and make their exchange, they gave pleasantries. But the number one mistake that they did was start talking trash about the business of, the transit business. And that's one thing you don't do, people. If you're disgruntled with your job, and I know it's hard, because sometimes people bait you into this. If you're disgruntled with your job and you want to vent, please don't do it on your place of work. And you might think that coworker is cool because sometimes they'll even initiate the situation, but you don't know what their role is or their purpose is for getting you to talk. You could have been one of these type of people that probably kept to yourself, but over a period of time, you became disgruntled, your behavior has changed, your work habits have changed because you set boundaries as to you don't do as much overtime anymore. You're requesting the benefits that you racked up, like your vacation time. You're standing more firmly in what you believe in, or you may have a side hustle where, you can't, contribute all the extra time. You don't participate in the extra activities that the company has to offer anymore. Your attitude has changed because of your mistreatment. And rightly so. It's human nature. If you're involved in a relationship of any kind and you have given your all and given and given and given, and you have been just constantly asked for more, without any recognition, without any acknowledgement, without any reward, what do you think a person's going to do over a period of time? Of course, their attitude is going to change. And once that attitude changes, then a part of their brain shuts on where they're looking for an escape hatch. I'm going to do this until such and such a date. See, before they didn't have such deadlines. Or I'm going to do this side hustle until the side hustle pays more than this piece of shit job so I can leave with a smile on my face. Because there's a lot of that going on in the community now because the economy is so unstable. 2 incomes are required in most households, even if you're by yourself. So it's not unusual for someone to be quiet, keep their head down, and work hard for an employer for, let's say, 5, 10 years, or in some cases 2, depending, take on a side hustle, and the side hustle is paying them probably in 1 month what they could get in 1/4 of a salary from their employer. You get a job paying $60,000 a year, maybe every quarter you get $15,000, because that breaks down to $15,000 every quarter. $15,000 every quarter, you take up a side hustle and come to find out you made $15,000 every month. And so you stack your pennies, you just stack your money to the point where you've got at least a year's salary set aside somewhere or more. You've repaired your credit. You're taking care of your obligations. Your side hustle is paying all of the bills that your job used to pay. And you're okay. So you can walk away. All this because you weren't treated right at your current job. So back to the story about the two drivers, as the two drivers were exchanging pleasantries, these were two women, and unfortunately, they were talking very loudly about how they're being overworked at that particular time. And during this time of the year, there are a lot of people, and I'm recording this in July. There are a lot of people who have families, have children, have grandchildren that are going to be starting school in August, September, and they take a lot of vacations. But the company's been tight-fisted for a long period of time is trying to hire people. The hiring process is a very strict one, yes it is. But there was a period of time up until the world situation occurred where it was hard to get in there and they didn't want to hire anybody. They didn't want to hire anybody. They wanted to sit there and just work people to death, work people to death, work people to death. Then the world situation flipped the world's economy on its ear and made companies realize how important employees were. So now that everything is getting back to so-called normal, because it's totally not, now the company has this new approach where they want to get as many people as they can. They're on a hiring frenzy now, whereas opposed 5 years before wouldn't have thought of it. But they're on a hiring frenzy now because they realize the value of good labor. They're beginning to pay more attention to employee retention, offering incentives, offering more reasons for people that they have to stay, because during the time of the world situation, they lost a lot of good people, whether it be physically or whether it be finances or they aged out, whatever the case may be. The light bulb went off for a lot of people, just like it did for me, as to getting a side hustle or another source of income and not just depending on a paycheck. Am I downing my paycheck? No. Don't get it twisted that I am downing what I have. I'm thankful for what I have. I am thankful. Let me make that very clear. But these two drivers were talking about how they picked up extra shifts during this particular week and how tired they were, but they got to keep going because the company, not because neither one of them said that they needed it now. This is the funny part about it, excuse me. Not because they said they needed it, but because the company needed for them to work. See, that's the difference between now and then. And that brings another point. 5-10 years ago, employers had the impression that they were doing workers a favor by giving them a job. They had a huge superiority complex as far as dealing with people, and that's why a lot of them were very, very chintzy as far as trying to hire people, knowing that they needed or giving benefits to the ones that were there. They didn't care because they figure in their mind, oh, another good worker will come walking in the door, come racing in the door, especially once the world situation started to resolve itself and everybody was opening their doors to hiring. See, when everybody opened their doors to hiring, they were under the impression because the world suffered so greatly economically when the world situation occurred, and people were struggling, they were figuring that once they opened the doors and said that they were hiring, that people were just going to come flooding in the door, filling out applications left and right. And now they're sitting up there disappointed and scratching their head, and they're like, wait a minute, we holding job fairs here every month. Some people every week, some people ongoing, speaking to people on the spot. And they're wondering where the line is. They looking outside when they open the doors. They wondering how come the lobby's not full of people. How come there aren't people lined up at the registration table? Because they hit the game. A lot of people during the world situation when they couldn't go nowhere and couldn't do anything had to come up with their own businesses, had to come up with their own side hustles just to make it. And what happened is those businesses and those side hustles have paid off 2-3 years later. And it's working for them. And they're like, why should I subject myself to somebody else's rules if I'm making more in 1 month than I do in 4 to 6 months for this other person? and I've already got my money stacked. It's a common sense move. But it's funny to hear how the drivers were talking about how the company needs for them to do it, whereas 5 or 10 years ago, those same people would be talking about how they need the money. You know why? Because those drivers have some money stacked away somewhere for whatever reason. They don't need the money. And they were talking about how they're going to set limits. Well, I'm just only going to do one more shift, and then after that, they're on their own. See, that wasn't the attitude of employees before. So if you're one of these businesses that are sitting up here trying to get blood out of a turnip every single day, that turnip is going to dehydrate and turn to dust one day, and you're not going to have anything to draw any blood from. So I kind of hope this helps somebody. If you're starting a business, understand that labor is going to be a huge amount of your responsibility financially and time-wise. Your labor force is your business, even if it's just you. And that requires a certain amount of commitment and dedication. But you can't take advantage of the fact that you do have a business and that you do have a product and that it's funded and just assume that the rest of the world's going to come falling at your feet because you've got this and they're quick to do business with you. Even when you're trying to collaborate with a business partner, don't assume it. Because the same way those people are trying to collaborate with you, they've got 6 or 7 other deals that are on the table in line behind you. See, people have options nowadays. So take that into consideration if you want to keep your business afloat. It's a constant investment, time-wise, financially, and everything else. As long as you have that license and as long as you have those doors open, it's going to be a constant commitment, and it has to be a steady one and a fruitful one for all involved. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. Peace.